Two of college football's most high-profile quarterbacks squared off in January 1st Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Ohio State's Will Howard and the University of Oregon's Heisman Trophy finalist Dillon Gabriel. Howard threw 2 touchdown passes in the Buckeyes' first 3 series, while the Gabriel-led Ducks offense punted 3 times in their first 3 series. In today's show, I'm going to tell you why Howard was lighting it up while Dillon Gabriel wasn't. This is QB Unfiltered, my take, the 5 major differences with the Rose Bowl quarterbacks.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you want to play tough and want to hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, so to start this off with the 2 QBs, I've said this all season long that I think Dillon Gabriel is the most mechanically perfect QB playing in college football. He does everything right, mechanically, technique-wise. I think he's got the best feet of any quarterback in college football. Will Howard, on the other hand, has had a really strong season, productive, but not spectacular. But on New Year's Day and in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, Howard lit up the Ducks early and often while Gabriel struggled. This is what the Buckeyes did in the first half. They had 7 drives offensively. This is what Howard and the Bucks did. First drive was 3 plays, 75 yards. It resulted in a touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith. The third drive was 3 plays, 53 yards, and a touchdown pass to Emeka Egbuka. The fourth drive was 10 plays, 63 yards, and a field goal. The fifth drive was 2 plays, 48 yards, and a touchdown pass, again to Jeremiah Smith. The sixth drive was 1 play, 66 yards. It was a touchdown run by running back Travion Henderson. And the seventh drive, the last drive of the first half, was 10 plays, 43 yards, and a field goal. So in the first half, the Ohio State offense had 7 drives, which produced 6 scores. On the flip side of this, the first half offensive numbers for the Ducks and Dillon Gabriel were as follows. First drive, 3 plays, 9 yards and punt. Second drive, 3 plays, 2 yards and punt. Third drive, 7 plays, 26 yards and punt. Fourth drive, 7 plays, 23 yards, and they turned it over on downs. Fifth drive, 3 plays, 6 yards, and they punted. Sixth drive, 3 plays, minus 2 yards, and they punted. Seventh drive, 10 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown. So in the first half, Oregon had 7 offensive drives and punted the ball 5 times. Okay, so let's talk about those 5 differences in quarterback play and what went down in Ohio State's 41-21 ass-kicking of the number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks. These are my 5 major reasons why Howard shined and Gabriel didn't. Number 1, Ohio State's offensive line and pass protection. And, it doesn't matter what offense you're looking at, what scheme you're looking at. When a quarterback throws the ball, a lot of what makes him successful or not is what those 5 dudes up front, plus the running back, are doing in pass protection. And the key for every offensive line coach, every pass protection scheme is to allow your quarterback to execute his drop, whatever it is, all right? Get to that last step of his drop. He's already gone through his reads as he's dropping. Hit that last step, stride and throw, okay? That's a perfect world. If that perfect world doesn't happen, then you want that pass protection to be good enough where the quarterback can come off his initial reads, possibly snap eyes to the backside and continue his reads and be able to throw the ball without getting knocked on his ass. In other words, with pass protection, the quarterbacks that can take their drop, throw in rhythm, those guys are usually a hell of a lot more successful than quarterbacks that can't do that. And so simply put, Ohio State's offensive line kept Will Howard on his feet and pretty much allowed him to throw in rhythm the entire day. Okay, so Oregon's offensive line, on the other hand, was a deal where they didn't have mental busts. They didn't have questionable schemes with their pass protection. They just had a whole bunch of situations where one of their guys was usually getting beat or was starting to get run by, which forced Gabriel to either have to climb the pocket or bail out, roll out, spin out, make somebody miss and bail out. In other words, when he was throwing the ball, he was throwing it usually on the move. And that's not what the Oregon Ducks wanted to do. So just ask yourself how many times that you can remember in this game did Dillon Gabriel take the snap, take a 3-step drop, stride and throw, or take the snap, take a 3-step drop, hitch, stride and throw. Not very often. So like I said, most of the time when he was chucking the rock, he was doing it on the move because the pocket broke down in one way or the other. Okay, number 2 reason why there was major difference in the quarterback play in this game. Ohio State's receivers were playing at a different level than Oregon's DBs. Okay, and receiver Jeremiah Smith, he was playing on a different planet. You watch these games in the good old days and you saw a receiver that was just head and shoulders and head and shoulders and head and shoulders better than anybody else in the defensive secondary. A guy like Randy Moss, it was almost like he was just toying with them. Well, this was Jeremiah Smith in this game. He was so much better than Oregon's secondary. It was very noticeable. And the thing that I, liked about him is when the ball was up in the air where he had to leave his feet, he was going up and playing on the rim and extending his arms and catching the ball clean with strong hands. That is a confident and physical receiver. So the guy could run, but he would also go up and get it. And there was it just looked like there was such a major difference in the physical ability of Smith versus the DBs for Oregon. And man, Chip Kelly dialed up his number a lot in that first half, and Will Howard found him, and he was pretty unstoppable. And not only was he stronger and more physical going up and getting the ball, but when they tried to press him or they tried to reroute him by getting hands on him, he was really strong and aggressive with slapping and chopping hands and getting rid of hands and breaking hands. And that's what you teach your receivers to do. It's a street fight out there when you're going against a pressed up DB or a guy that's trying to reroute you. You got to get rid of hands. And he did that time and again. He was slapping and chopping and running free in the secondary. And it wasn't just the physicality of going up and getting the ball. The first touchdown that Ohio State scored on the little screen pass to Smith, little wide receiver screen, those 2 receivers for Ohio State on the left side of their formation, they absolutely owned Oregon's DBs on the stock blocks on that play. Those 2 dudes made that play. They made that touchdown happen. So it was a night and day difference with Ohio State's receivers and Oregon's DBs. And with Smith, it was really like a man playing against boys out there. Okay, this leads me right into number 3, and that's the play from Oregon's receiving crew. When I watch a game on TV and I know that they're throwing the ball, I try to expand my vision and see all 4 receivers, what they're doing in the route concept, or if they're releasing the back, what they're doing with all 5 guys. I just kind of try to watch the speed of the receivers and whether or not they're running man routes against man coverage and zone routes against zone coverage. And with these routes, it's not just the guy catching the ball that's the important receiver, but all of these guys are working to get each other open. So not only are they trying to get open themselves, but they're working in concert with each other to get each other open. And in doing that, they have to take the proper releases. They have to go full speed. They've got to be able to run man routes when it's man and zone routes when it's zone. They've got to get rid of hands, and they work to get each other open. Okay. And with that being said, Oregon's receivers just didn't play very good, I didn't think. There were a number of plays in this game where they threw the ball, where they had one or two receivers that would just jog their ass off the line of scrimmage on the snap of the ball and just ho-hum it into their route. And anytime you got receivers doing that, that most certainly screws up another receiver and opening up grass for somebody else. And now Gabriel's going, oh shit. And the timing's screwed up now with the other receivers. Things break down, and that's when sacks happen or incompletions or whatever. So with Oregon's receivers, this is what I saw throughout the game. Jogging routes, flat ass and flat out quitting on routes, allowing themselves to be covered, okay? Making it easier for defenders to hug up on them and hold them. So this is a perfect example right here of what Oregon's day went like. Gabriel is keying left on the drop here, and Oregon's outside receiver to the left is running a hitch route. I call it a smash route, okay? He's running a hitch route, and he's open. Gabriel's keying him, or he's keying that side, but he doesn't throw it, okay? And what he does is he snaps his eyes to the backside, and what they've got going on the backside is they're running guys deep, right? And they've got a short receiver running a little under route, and that's the backside read for Gabriel. It's kind of like a check down for him, except watch how this guy runs his route. He jogs off the ball. I don't even call it jogging, and just runs right into the defender for Ohio State. And when a defender has a receiver do that, he just grabs cloth. The rest will never see it. And that receiver's not going anywhere. And look what happens with Gabriel now. He's trying to pull the trigger on that backside under route. That guy's taken away because of the horse shit route he ran and allowed himself to get covered and held. And now Gabriel has to try to scramble to his left. He doesn't see the guy behind him. Sack. That's how it went for Gabriel pretty much all day long, and I think his receivers had a big part of that. Okay, and then along with this, we talked about Ohio State just being physically better, just better. Night and day difference between them and Oregon. Their defense, the guy that stood out defensively, and I got to talk about him and mention him real quick. Safety Caleb Downs. Wow, what a baller that guy is. I mean, that dude was all over the place. And when he came downhill to hit dudes or to tackle guys, he announced his presence with authority, and he was a sure tackler. He was all over the place. Okay, number 4 difference in the two quarterbacks was Oregon's defensive confusion. There were a lot of times in this game where their defense could not get lined up. They couldn't get lined up. It was almost as if they hadn't watched any film on Ohio State's offensive formations. Okay, so there were a handful of times where no motion, no shifting. Ohio State just lined up in a formation, and you had linebackers for Oregon trying to wave guys over or telling them to get back on the other side or turning and looking to the sideline with their hands like this. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And that confusion that they had jumped up and bit him in the ass on the second touchdown catch by Jeremiah Smith. Now, one of two things happened on this play. They were either playing cover one, man free, and the guy lined up over Jeremiah Smith didn't run with his butt, okay? Because it looks like everybody else is locked up, but Smith's running free from the get-go. And Chip Kelly didn't line him up as a receiver on this play. He brought him in real tight to the tackle. He was almost like a tight end. I don't know if he got lost. Who knows? But I do know that Oregon had a safety or a DB type guy lined up over the top of him that on the snap of the ball bailed like he was getting out there to curl the flat. Okay. It looked like everybody else was playing cover one. So either that guy screwed up and didn't run with Smith, or they were playing cover 3 and the corner to the left didn't get depth and played deep third to the outside, exactly where Smith caught the ball. Now, Kirk Herbstreit, being Kirk Herbstreit, tried to blame it on the free safety who was just playing center field on this thing. But the bottom line is there was either confusion or a mental bust, but you're letting the best receiver in probably college football, and for sure a guy that was playing on a different planet in this game, run completely scot-free the entire way on his route and catch his second touchdown pass. Now, when this type of stuff happens on defense, it usually means one of three things. Number one, the offense is lining up in formations that the defense hasn't seen on film. Okay. Number two, the defensive coordinator has put in a bunch of new shit for this bowl, and his players have way too much to think about, and there's confusion. Or number three, the individual player just had a mental bust. So I got to think on this one. And this is number three. It was either the guy playing over Smith, they're playing cover one, and he doesn't lock up on him and run with him. I think they were playing cover one. And then the last reason why there was a difference, I think, in quarterback play in this game was Ohio State's scheme up front. First off, Ohio State was able to harass and pressure Gabriel with just a 4-man rush a lot of times. And there were times where they even got to him with a 3-man rush. Okay. It's really not good if you're able to do that with just a 3-man rush. But one thing that was clear, their defensive game plan included this. For the defensive lineman, if you could not get to Gabriel, just hold your ground, wait for him to raise up and throw the ball, and get your hands up in the air, and let's knock down passes. Let's deflect passes, which they did a bunch. Okay, Gabriel's listed at 5'11". That might be a little generous. I don't know. But it was obvious that that was their game plan. They couldn't get to him. They were going to jump up and knock balls down. The other thing they did on defense is they took number 0, Cody Simon. He's a linebacker, pretty big guy with some really good athletic ability. And they used him as a spy on Gabriel. So a lot of times in this game, they would drop into their coverages, right, with the secondary and the linebackers. Simon would just kind of hang out and shadow Gabriel. Now, he was about linebacker depth, and he just kind of shadowed him. And when Gabriel pulled the ball down and tried to run it, he would pull the string, Simon would, and he'd come downhill. And then he was just as good an athlete as Gabriel. Gabriel couldn't juke him. Couldn't get him leaning one way or the other. And Simon was a sure tackler, and he did this a number of times where he just shadowed him, wait for him to pull the ball down, and then just came downhill, didn't go for any of the fakes or the jukes, and made a clean tackle. Very, very impressive. Okay, and then a couple of odds and ends about both quarterbacks. In the first quarter, Gabriel threw an outside vertical. He took a 3-step drop, and then he hitched and threw the vert. As soon as you take a hitch step as a quarterback throwing an outside vertical, you can assure yourself that that receiver is at least 10 more yards further down the field, and that ball has to travel at least 10 more yards in the air. That's what that hitch step does, right? As soon as you put that hitch step in there, you just add distance to the route and distance to the throw. And on this play, Gabriel went 3 hitch, stride and throw, and he underthrew it. He threw it short. Okay, how much of a difference was there in physical play and maybe mental approach to this thing? In the second quarter, Buckeyes quarterback Howard ran a QB sneak for 3.5 yards. That's really hard to do. Okay, Gabriel's last touchdown pass was big time. He stayed in the pocket with poise, and then he did what I always taught my quarterbacks and what I like to see more quarterbacks do, and I call it controlled shuffle. And that is when you come off your initial reads, right? And you know now that your offensive line is losing ground. You get into that controlled shuffle where you keep your eyes downfield, great ball carriage, and you just start to work back away from the line of scrimmage, still staying in the pocket. And what this does is it creates a buffer zone between you and your offensive lineman. So a lot of times you'll see quarterbacks that will hit that last step, okay, and they come off their initial reads and they're trying to find their backside reads, and they don't move anywhere. And pretty soon their offensive linemen, those guys are losing ground when they pass block. They're right in the face of the quarterback, and it causes him to throw off his back foot, or it causes him to pull the ball down and get out of the pocket when you don't need to. So what Gabriel does here is he executes this controlled shuffle, stays in the pocket, and throws an absolute dart for a touchdown pass. Well done. Okay, so bottom line in the Rose Bowl, Will Howard and his teammates came to play. All right. And Dillon Gabriel is going to go back home now to Eugene, Oregon, and get ready for the draft and the combine, and Ohio State moves on. I'll tell you what, if the Buckeyes show up against Texas like they did against Oregon, look out. Okay, if you guys enjoyed my take on the differences between Will Howard and Dillon Gabriel, hit that like button, share this thing out, and subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate the support. Let me know what you thought of the Rose Bowl and the two quarterbacks. And this is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.